Hey, what's going on, Flawless fam? Will here coming to you guys with I guess it's been planned, but hadn't been scheduled well in advance. But it's kind of follow up on a 2023 season with Morphed Out Reptiles. Tim, that's my man. We're going to run through a bunch of stuff. It's going to be a lot of information. We have a good outline, a good base to start with. Let's see who's in the chats. I'm gonna try to keep up with this as well. Normally, I'm not sure if Audra's in the chat, but she's always tapping in, making sure that we got everybody covered. Hopefully, I got the audio on point. What's going on, Frank? Our man, Heathen Hatchery. What's up, Brian? Eric B. No Rockin. What's up? What's up, KMB? Bodacious Balls. What's going on? I got to get with you guys, definitely, because we got to get you guys on. So, without further ado, this is going to be action-packed, jam-packed. Hopefully, a lot of information. This video or this live is actually going to be quite different. Obviously, it's going to be no edits. It's live. But this is one of those things where we're going to get a vet, a guy that I pretty much look up to, even though he looks up to me as well. I may have a lot of business sense, but again, guys, I'm new to these ball pythons. He's been in the ball python game now over a decade, so he's very personable. He's very business savvy, but when you mix feelings with business, you run into some issues. So we're gonna talk about a few different things. Here we go. What's up, brother?
I'm not crying. You're crying. What's going on, guys?
Hey, you know how it is, man. Hey, I've been on my Club Shay Shay tip. I've been watching Shannon Sharp on his Club Shay Shay, man. Some of his intros, I'm like, I gotta do that. I gotta be on that. Man, you make you feel like you're the president when you come on board.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Veteran, I don't know. I don't know about veteran, but I mean,
oh, you're a vet.
It's help. It's
how many years you got in the game?
I want to say we've been in reptiles for a long time, but we take it as like Morphed Out Reptiles since 2014 is when we actually took it serious to say, hey, I want to license this. I want to do something, So 2014 is pretty good. I think our first successful like breeding and selling year was probably 2016 was when we actually had a pretty decent year, and it was more than just a handful of stuff that we were breeding. But
no decade, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it helps a lot more, when you've seen so much in that little bit of time change.
Mm-hmm.
And as you and me have been talking a lot about more recently in the last couple of months, Will, it's a learning curve because we see so much stuff in the last 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, with this being technically our 10th year since we finally actually was like, hey, let's license the name, let's copyright the name, let's do everything, let's start it, actually going.
Right.
Being 10 years, you kind of look back, and I do it often, especially with the collection. You just look at how things progressed, how things were, where your like down year was or what happened. And especially with, again, I tell you thank you all the time, but with having somebody like you to kind of sit there and just talk through it, you see where the flaws were. And it's big when you can look at it in a short amount of time, like 10 years, and see like some stuff is just not the way it was 3 years ago. So you always have to evolve. And I think we've struggled. I mean, you and me have talked a lot about that. We've struggled, we have our ups and downs, but the biggest thing is being able to learn and correct those, hopefully moving forward and make it, better.
Right. That's one of those things we put out there on camera all the time. It's hard to kind of really get started. And we identify with that. And understand that everybody's going to have their own, feelings. They're going to have their own direction toward things. And we're trying to be a staple in the community to bring everyone together. Our way is not the right way. It's just one of the ways. There's a lot of wrong ways out there that can be replicated over and over, but we don't want to be seen as, oh, you're not doing it our way, then what you're doing. We never want to put it out there like that. And that's part of our communication that we have in private You know, that's why we like to do these videos, especially you and I, where we can put it out there because it's transparency. I mean, there's a lot of people, believe it or not, that look up to Flawless, and we're in year two. There's a lot of people that look up to Morph Out Reptiles. You know, so it's like if you're building your brand that way, why not put it out there so people can say, "Hey, I bumped my head, so you ain't got to bump yours."
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's one thing that is great from, like, we talked in the last lab that we did a little bit about it, but like, early on, like years ago, and there's guys that, they know this. If you've been in the actual ball python community long enough, back in the day, it was secretive.
Right.
Nobody, it was so hard to get information or one-on-one, like, you and me do all the time, or, videos like this with like the bigger, pillars of our industry. And I think it's really important, especially nowadays. Like, this is, even if somebody's just like, hey, I just need something to listen to, you never know what you're going to grasp or be able to try from somebody else. And I mean, like you and me deal with, and most of the people that we, deal with and talk to on a regular day basis, it's nothing but love. Like,
Right.
issues or anything like that, stuff happens, but the biggest thing that you can do, and I've learned this, tenfold in the last probably 2 to 3 years, you can't just overlook it. Like, you're not going to solve the problem. And that's what we're dealing with Morphed Out Reptiles right now, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and I found that you have to take the totality of circumstances. Um, you know, sometimes you got to look at it like, what, everyone doesn't have the same circumstances that around their decisions. And with that being said, it's like um, you can listen to even some of the big wigs. Respect to everyone. It's never gonna be shade thrown any direction. But I mean, they're human beings as well, so they're going to make some mistakes, and some of them is going to be unknown to them that they ever made a mistake. And sometimes it comes from the evolution of, living life and learning through different experiences. But you'll find that maybe, 10 years ago, you said one thing on camera, and then here in present day, you're saying something completely different. Or it may be 6 months ago, and now you're saying something. Maybe
Yeah.
you're doing something where it was, a self-correcting error, or a life-changing moment where you just decided to go in a different direction, or maybe it's just a mishap. But sometimes I do think some of the bigger names may take it for granted that they have such a following behind them. I mean, hardcore, straight up fans, that a lot of people take everything that they say for gold. So the moment that they switch up, unknowingly to them, the moment they switch up, they don't notice the impact that their words may have. As simple as something as, I'll use ourselves for example. If I got Joe Blow Jean that I'm reviewing, and I'm a bigwig, which we are not, but if I'm reviewing this gene, and the gene's pretty cool, and I think it resembles a different type of gene. Let's say I have one of those genes or two of those genes in my collection, and I haven't really worked it, haven't even had a single clutch. If I automatically throw a blanket statement out there like, "Oh, that Joe Blow gene is the same as this," holds a lot of weight. It's probably something I shouldn't say, because
Yeah.
I'm controlling a certain corner of the market. There's something I probably need to educate myself on a little bit more, and get a little bit more experimental with the gene until I can prove certain things out. I just think it's a different approach that can kind of please all angles, if that even makes sense.
And I think that's another thing with, like, you know, the circle that you have, and of course we have a whole community, everybody. I want to meet so many people and, just talk snakes. It's awesome. But, that inner circle that you actually have, you know, I used to be that way. Like, I don't want to bug this person, but it's like, man, reach out. Like, we do it a lot with, IDing with all the complex genes and everything, when you're making all these crazy combinations, and especially moving forward, like what our goal is for, from now forward. We're
Right.
talking about getting into some very complex, 4 to 5, 6 gene animals,
Right.
you know, I've actually started doing this a little bit more, when we start looking at like building a project or an idea, like, hey, I really want to do this. I also try to see, okay, who do I know that I can like have a normal conversation with that is in the either that exact project or similarities, maybe one gene if we're working like double or triple recessive stuff, reach out to them, just get some like information. Hey, what have you seen? Because I mean, we've seen it in the past where you take a gene, two single genes that we know the reactions. You put them together and bam, you have something completely out of the ordinary that isn't what is out there. And it makes
Right.
it hard. But I mean, we reach out. I mean, we talk to you. I've done it with Bob Vu a lot, just conversating like, hey, what's your opinion? Why is your opinion this way? And I mean, it's just all information. Like you said, I mean, sometimes people, years go by and you'll, like you said, you'll say one thing on like either a post or something like that. And then it changes, like you said, within as soon as a couple months.
Right.
Some people immediately look at that like, oh man, like what's going on? Like you need to get your stuff together. But honestly, most of the time it's probably just a learning curve. I mean,
It is.
with how
Yeah.
much time that we've had in it, I still learn almost every day. Like we just actually today I just pulled out more of our ball python books. Like we
Mhm.
have books that we've had for years. We've read them. We went through them. I'm just gonna go back through them, like see, now my mind's in a different place, especially with the collection, what genes we're trying to focus on. Maybe we didn't focus on that back then when we first went through it. So
Right.
just give it a refresher, see if we can find anything else out and see if it works.
Before we get rocking and rolling with our outline, how hard was it for you during this time from when you started to now to transition hardcore from straight incomplete dominant combinations over into the recessive world?
I beat myself up doing that
Yeah.
a lot. Like, honestly, when we started, it was obviously probably like a lot of people, we have some cool stuff, we see some cool animals, splurge buying when we find this looks cool, everything like that. Once we get past all of that and actually start focusing on what's important, which we are still doing, I've been doing it for probably, I would say comfortably the last 3 to 4 years. We've been pushing to try to, just solidify everything and figure out like what is like, what do I want for marked out reptiles? And honestly, we already had a few recessives already mixed into, the incomplete dominance and stuff like that we already had. It just wasn't the right ones.
Right.
So we kind of just, used that, started focusing on some stuff and just picking up recessives as we go. But again, there's things and ways that knowing what I know now and what I'm dealing with and what we're going to go through with the, 2023 season, I would have done so much stuff different down to the animals that we pick, what genes. But again, like we touched base on at the beginning, everybody's situation is, different. So we have to stay in our, situation and how much, we can control. So obviously, with us, we start out with a lot of head to head, pos head, stuff like that. And now we're to the point where we're almost there. Like we're seeing some of the productions. And one of the biggest mishaps that I did in the beginning was not being my best customer.
Yeah, and we're going to touch that. We're going to touch back
Yeah.
and forth on that. I try to really, really drive that home as a brand, even with Flawless. You you can't preach that enough. Now, what I'm saying about that is getting started. Again, we are new, and getting started is extremely important. It's important even as a vested vet. It's important, but there's a huge difference between us, and I'll throw it out there. Like I said, we never do any shade, but like Canova, if he hits a game changing snake, he's so far ahead in the industry that if he decides to sell that snake, it's not crippling. It's really not.
Yeah.
we can, take a step back, go in different directions, hopefully replicate it again in the next 2-3 years, and still be ahead of the
And
game.
like you and me were talking about before, when you talk about that with hoping next year,
Mhm.
the bigger guys, they have a lot better chance. So you also have to think about that. And this goes back to a lot of different people put it in their podcasts and stuff, is what is the maximum that one person or one company should, not that you can, control, but should control. And if that
Right.
makes sense, like I feel like even when coming into the recessive game, I feel that there is a limit. If not, unless you have the space and all the means, and like we're probably touch on, the feed, everything like that,
Infrastructure, yep.
But even still, I still feel, to be 100% and make, something big of a project, there's got to be a limit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a limit, not only a limit. I mean, you got to think about the levels of things. And if you're running a big operation like that, you're going to have some type of management. I hate keep referring back to Canova, but it's an awesome business model. It really, really is. So everything I'm speaking about that is under good light. But for instance, like Chase is underneath, Justin. Justin has built this business. It's amazing whether you like him or not. He's built an awesome business.
And
He's
especially if you've like I myself, Justin, he's a awesome person. He's a pillar to what we do. But
absolutely
if you've watched, a big breeder like himself or some of the other ones from when they started to where they are now. I mean, Justin just released a video of his 20, I believe it was 20 years.
right.
That's amazing from where he started to where he's at in 20 years.
I
And you
watched it.
see the team behind him. Like there's a
And
lot of stuff that goes on the bigger you go. But it's also important. I think it's very, very important that you can't jump into that too fast.
right, because that's what I was going to touch on. You're going to have some years I would coin as dormant years, where yeah, you're producing some things. It sounds crazy because I'm kind of categorizing us that way, where we're having maybe dormant years, but we're making some cool stuff. But when you're building, even with your restructuring and rebuilding and everything, we're in the same weird spot because you have so many things that's on your to be purchased list as well as need list in the years to come, that you're forced into a really, really tough spot where, okay, cool, you hit that puzzle clown or you hit that, clown G stripe with 8 other genes. And it's like we're going to touch on that, where we're kind of in that lane as well with your project. Actually, you know what? We'll touch on that when we get to that. Let's jump right into the list. So as far as total clutches for 2023.
Total clutches for 2023, we did 20 clutches.
Okay, 20 clutches. Now, 2022, roughly, it doesn't have to be exactly. How many clutches did you do in 2022?
I want to say we did 17 or 18. So from what I can remember off the top of my head, our biggest year for Marked Out Reptiles, period, I believe was 2019 into 2020. And we did 25 clutches, I think. And I know, maybe some people that are watching, 10 to 12 years in, well, we'll just go with 10 years. This is our 10th year. 10 years in, and our biggest year is 25 clutches. That's a lot. I mean, especially because, like, for me, we don't have any outside help. It's me. I do animals care. Everything is under me, and this isn't even a full-time job. So, we try to make sure. I don't want to be, honestly, I don't want to do 50 to 60 clutches a year. Not yet. Maybe in the future, but it's a lot. And I mean, for 2023, since that is the recap for this, the purpose of this, 20 clutches, we did 111 eggs.
Wow.
So, 20 clutches, it seems like a very, very small number, especially when we're working with the collection. During the 2023 breeding season, our collection was pushing probably closer to 200 animals. We only did 20 clutches. That's the numbers seem off. But, with that, we had, limitations with what we can successfully hold in our hatchling area at that time. So we always, push, be ready for that. Like, I didn't want to be, 25, 26 clutches and be slammed. And then we're out of tubs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we got to that point. I was literally, I believe it was the end of 2022 season. As we were clearing tubs from animals that had moved, a clutch shed, and we were filling those tubs right away.
Wow.
So we had to upgrade, add some more stuff. But yeah, I mean, off of 20 clutches, 111 eggs, and 2023 was our first year that we had 0 slugs.
Yeah, I kept seeing the post, and that's awesome. So, on the marketing side of the business, and we probably haven't even spoken about that. We speak about so many different things, but that concept, I don't think you ran with hard enough personally. So that's a little bit of friendly criticism on
Absolutely,
there.
absolutely.
For everyone listening, whether live or on the rewatch, that's phenomenal. That to me, Tim is in the, realm in the lane right now of trying to brand his own business, not necessarily rebrand it, but increase the reach in a sense. And once he rolls out with his YouTube, we're going to be a faithful subscriber and supporter of that as well. But when you can put out there, whether on social media, whatever part of social media, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, that you've had an entire year, I don't care if it's 10 clutches, 20 clutches, whatever it may be, and you've produced 0 slugs. Now, guess what you've increased? You've increased so much interest in what you're doing husbandry wise that guess what? You're not serving an interest. You're not giving that person that's following you what they need. They want to know, all right, I need to know bedding, I need to know your weekly schedule, I need to know your source of water. Are you using bottled water, faucet water? It's funny, but these people, us included, we want to like, man, you had 20 clutches and 0 slugs. Okay, cool. Just so you can see what someone else is doing in their facility to attain something like this. That's a
Absolutely.
whole nother avenue of reach, of marketing, everything right there.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we go back to the learning curve. 10 years, this is our 10th year. I won't say that I'm extremely happy with where we are in a sense, because I know where we came from. Not where I want to be, but that's goals. I mean, learning curve, with like that, the zero slug season, 111 babies. If we would have had a bigger social media presence, or, like we're working on the YouTube stuff, I'm getting over that, personal hump of trying to
Right.
get out there more. That's a big topic, and the weird thing is, I want to say 2022, we went through a kind of a good bit of changing, and I don't know if that helped. It could have, but you know everything's different everywhere. We could be neighbors, and my
Mhm.
setup stuff and your stuff could be completely different. So yeah, I definitely agree. We didn't go into that enough, but again, learning curve. Now we over the last couple of years, we've focused more on a lot more of the data portion of what we're doing every year, and just trying to keep better track of everything so that we can go back and look and see, okay, hey, we played around with, some temperatures in the summertime. We've seen a different increase or decrease here. So just more information that we can pass on to somebody if, temperatures or anything like that comes up.
So Miggy adds you only average 5.5 eggs a clutch, where your girl is younger. I think that's all. It's slightly below average, but not by much. I mean, I think the average, is normal.
Um,
So
I
it's
would
roughly right
say
there.
shout out to Miggy. What's going on, bro? Um, I would say just off the top of my head, our average, I don't, we do ultrasound, but I don't do it often. We ultrasound maybe 2 to 3 times a year just to get a roundabout of where girls are. And I try to let the animal and learn the animal of where they're going.
Right.
Ultrasounds are a big thing. We did get a few, I think it was like 4 or 5 females that we ultrasounded. They were right at that sweet spot, got one lock, and then boom, ovulation. But I would say my average weight would probably be around 16 to 1800 gram range.
Okay.
So definitely not, a ton of huge, big girls. But then again, we go back to, we do all this, but we don't know the outcome. For instance, we did one pairing. Our female was a 3,300 gram female. She gave us 5 eggs.
Oh wow.
So, a female that size, I've had, I think my biggest was, she was like 2,000 grams and she gave us 11 eggs.
Plus, if 2,000 grams and she gives you 11 eggs, even if they're medium to smaller eggs, it's going to be really difficult at that size to get her back ready for the following season.
Oh, absolutely. And, obviously, shout out to Levance. I don't know how he does it. His clutches counts and egg counts are freaking insane. But yeah, so like a female like that, we got 11 eggs, and she was definitely on the smaller side after laying. But that is a girl where I will not even consider the next year for breeding. We give her time.
I think definitely shout out to Levance, because I think it's public knowledge. He's already put it out there on several platforms that, typically he's not breeding, year 1, year 2. Normally he's waiting 3 and 4 years, and he's getting females up 3,000, close to 4,000 grams before they even bred for the first time. So if he's keeping records on that or ever releases data, I know he's super secretive. I get it. But if he releases data on how he's doing it, I think that will be instrumental in.
And over the years, as probably a lot of people, over the years, we definitely look at production and look at how, when a female or a male had started, what issues we had ran into that year. Males especially, we learned a lot and talked with Will up in Canada at RCR about that. We changed a lot of our routines. I'm not going to say, years back when we first started, the rule of thumb in the community was, 1,200 grams, they're ready to breed. We've done that. I've successfully had girls that just are in that smaller range that do fine, but we try to like hold out a little bit more now. And again, like we said, girls that lay bigger clutches but are on the smaller side, those girls already, they get marked, hey, next year we're just going to let you take the whole year. We'll check back in throughout the, normal going through the collection throughout the year. When we start breeding and we do our ultrasound, we'll check them and watch the progress. But again, most of the stuff that we try to do, I don't need to produce that next year. And especially now with the restructure, we've looked at a lot of different things. Like, most of our girls now are bigger. We have a few girls this year that are right around the 1,200 gram range, but I think it's just smart to probably hold out until next year. By that time, they should be a good bit more size. And, most of those, we just don't have the right male. And that's another thing with, breeding and learning and moving forward. I was stuck for a while. Just we'd have a girl that's ready to breed. I have an idea of what I want to do with her, but that's not either available or, ready for us right now. Well, we got this male. Let's just take this male and we'll throw him onto her. No planning at all. Just, hey, we don't want to lose that. Wrong business aspect.
Definitely. So out of 20 clutches, 111 eggs, we get to your holdbacks. How many holdbacks did you end up hitting?
29.
Yeah, 29 holdbacks, which is definitely awesome.
I added a hatchling, double size hatchling rack, V18s. Our preferred method is we do V18s from out of the egg, first shed, they're in a V18.
Okay.
With pretty much when we're doing, we get everything eating. Sorry, I need to turn off. Sorry, guys. When we go through and we're doing clutches, they get, the first probably 7 to 8 meals, and then we start looking at what's going to be holding back, unless it's that one animal that's just like, yeah, that's not going anywhere.
Right.
But V18 tubs from fresh shed hatchling up to, if they're holdbacks, up to probably around 450 grams,
Mm-hmm.
and then right into a 5540.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Now, if they're available animals, obviously the goal is to try to get them out before they outgrow a V18.
Right.
But yeah, so the holdbacks for last year were 29 in total, 9 males and 20 females.
9 males and 20 females. Okay. So off the top of your head, them 9 males, what were those males? Do you know?
All related. So really in 2023, because of the outcome of the 2022 season,
Mm-hmm.
2023, I definitely just took a step back and was like, I want to do a lot of things that I normally wouldn't do to please, having that mindset of, hey, we have shows, we need to do, stuff that's going to move, everything like that. I'm doing all these shows. Our name is known in our local shows. We're doing bigger shows. We want to have a nice, setup with a lot of stuff that's available in different projects. But when, stuff like what we're dealing with since 2021 happened, a lot of that stuff, if you don't keep up and pay attention to it, you will end up having a lot of the same byproduct that everybody else has.
Right.
And when we realized that and we kind of kicked ourselves for the 2022 year,
Mm-hmm.
2023, I told myself, no matter what, my first focus is on what is ready to breed. We want to do the best pairing for myself.
Smartest thing you could have said. We did a few videos actually on the trenches and staying out of the trenches, where we're not bashing any genes or anything at that like that. But the game plan is there's certain realms you want to stay out of, even when you're vending shows or you're online. Either way, if you have, and we did a video this week. If you have 50,000 snakes that's on Morph Market, and people say, "Oh, it's flooded," it's not really flooded. You just have to think a little bit. You have to put forth a little bit of effort, which you've done this year and last year. You got to put forth effort. If you're, producing, and again, we're speaking on a specific snake, but not about it. But for instance, ivories, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful snakes. But if they're that easy to make, okay, you're going to have to, at least on the business side, consider what you're up against. Okay, you're in the show where you have 20 breeders, ball python breeders at a show. Let's say there's legitimately amongst all 20 breeders, let's say there's 100 ivories to choose from. I mean, you kind of choose that battle to fight. And now you're dealing with this whole who has the lowest price one, who has the biggest one, who has the bigger name. It's all.
And I mean, with that, a lot of people, and I myself am the same way. Quality versus quantity.
Exactly.
But if you're in, like you just said, if you're dealing with 100, the odds of, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way because it's not directed that way, but if you have veteran guys or breeders, most of them are probably not looking for an ivory.
Right.
A lot of newer people coming into the hobby, that's going to be a combo that definitely is an attractive, eye-catching animal. But most of those people probably aren't really at that point looking at
Exactly.
quality versus quantity. They're going to look at price.
Yep.
and you know that it hurts. I mean, and we've dealt with that, you know, being in a mass population of a certain, whether it's combo, gene, whatever, it definitely takes a toll. And I mean, you got to focus on that. You got to be careful.
Absolutely, because you can still achieve the same goal. You can still work in that project. We are talking about that last night. You can still work in that project and be stuck with certain breeding, certain pairings where you're like, I'm going to produce this. And guess what? You can still do that breeding because you can still obtain that ideal gold snake that you're shooting for, and in that process produce one, two, three, very, very expensive ivories. But it kind of also is a win-win situation because guess what? Now, not only would you be toward the ceiling of the ivories, there's a reason you're toward the ceiling of the ivories. And I don't know the price point of ivories, but if an ivory is $300, there's nothing wrong with you having an ivory on your table for $400 because it's also past this, past that, past this, past that. And I understand the whole testing process, but you're priced it at a point where if it really proves out to be positive for any other things involved, you literally have $1,000 snake. So it's really your loss, but is your gain because you're not concerned as the breeder as it not being a holdback for it to have that value for you to test that animal because you got your gold animal in your clutch. So
Yeah.
why are you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense at that point. Maybe over time, maybe you did an awesome show, way better than you thought you would, and you brought that animal home. Now you can reevaluate some things and see if it now, oh, you know what, let me throw this in there, get it tested. You gotta make maneuvers on the fly. You gotta make adjustments on the fly. My personal opinion.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the 2023 season, most of our stuff was recessive, double recessive, triple recessive, and just trying to build towards the future of in a few years being ready to start combining for quad recessives.
Right.
That's obviously where most of the market, I don't want to say the market, the community, the hobby, all in general, obviously we're getting to the point where now this year we're going to start seeing a ton more triple recessives if they're hit, quad recessives. That's where we're going. So obviously we don't want to stay and trying to produce, a pied or
Yeah, but you know what? And one thing to touch on is in the attempt of chasing those quads and triples, you're going to see a ton of double visuals. A
oh
ton.
yeah, absolutely. And so that's one thing that we were really thinking about when going into the 2023 year was, okay, what do we want to focus on? What's the project? And we went really heavy with G-Stripe. It's a project. Some people love it, some people don't like it. Me personally, for a business aspect with what has been out there and the genes and how they've collaborated together and made combos, I think it's smart, especially when we can throw our own twist on it.
Yeah.
And like you said, because we looked at that project and we knew we wanted to, that really revolved around one male that we had purchased a couple of years earlier with Ozzy. That male, we ended up doing some stuff, nothing crazy for the first couple of years, and then we decided to try to prove out a het that was hiding. He proved out, and that's where most of the female aspect comes from. A lot of holdback females for the year because we were lucky enough to hit on quite a few, and the triple hypo G-stripe clown project, we immediately went double recessive to recessive just for the triple heads.
Right.
Do we wish we would have had another couple of genes in there? Absolutely. But regardless, let's get into it. Let's just get it growing. We got lucky on that, and I think we held back 2.5. So we have 5 100% triple head females.
Wow.
That is going to be very helpful later. but then shout out to Charlie with Great Rider.
Oh yeah.
After doing some genetic testing, we went back to that male's previous years where he had bred, some single gene stuff just to do, like we were talking about before, just a random female. Let's throw this 4 or 5 gene male in there and see what we get.
Yeah.
We tested some of that stuff, and we actually had around 5 females that were multi-gene animals that came back double het. So that immediately right to the holdback rack.
So with 2023, and you're having basically 82 animals that are sellable animals. Again, a lot of this live is going to be all business and structuring. Like, how did you do when it comes to sold hatchlings or sold juveniles from that 2023 season so far?
So in over the year, we rounded out, about 82 animals that were available that were not going to be holdbacks. We moved around 29 of them.
Okay. Move 29. And I'm touching in a little bit of a gray area because I know you're restructuring as well. How many breeders and grow outs do you have collectively?
Right now, current numbers that are staying and that are our grow outs for our breeders and our holdbacks, not including like the 2023 holdbacks. This is going back probably 21 season, 22 season, those grow outs. We have 20 males and 64 females.
20 males, 64 females.
And that's as a whole collection. That's my main breeders and some of the older holdbacks that are coming up on the breeding season rotations.
Okay, it still puts you in a good tight situation. You got basically 53 that's left and still available, and roughly 84 in the grow out / breeders. That's not bad at all.
And then adding, with that, we take and we add the 29 holdbacks that we had from 2023. We add that on top. So we're still roughly, I think with everything here and for sale and holdback, all total, we're still close to around, I believe, like 180 animals. Now, we'll say maybe 3 years ago, that number was probably closer to 300.
Wow.
So big difference. Again, restructure is a must here after a few seasons and doing some inside detective work at here at the facility. We've released 29 total adult breeders in 2023.
Nice. And I think that was very, very smart because you can't really move forward if you're still kind of stuck working with the same thing over and over and over that you're trying to move away from.
Well, yeah, and one of the biggest things that I always get stuck on is I'll do a pairing. We won't get the best odds.
Right.
I might get one. Something that was like, okay, that's really neat, that's interesting. Not the main goal, but close to it. I'll try again next year.
Yeah, see, yeah, and that's personally, I think that's the wrong approach on it. Me and you spoke about that.
Oh yeah, me too.
For me, even though we have a good size collection, I still kind of funnel ourselves in the same category as you. We're boutique style breeders. We have very specific niches. It may be multiple, but it's very specific in the areas that we're trying to work in. That being said, it's like you have to level up, and there's going to be certain times where, I asked you, I already gave you, I said, look, should I give you some of this information you asked? He's like, yeah, give it to me straight. Shoot it to me straight. I'm like, all right, cool. And we talk kind of every single day now.
Yeah.
But in that being said, it's like I can shoot it to you straight. We made videos about that as well, where people want criticism, but once they receive the criticism, it's not well received. And it's not saying that everyone thinks alike. You can agree to disagree. But with certain projects, I'm like, man, you're the chocolate man when it comes to me. When I'm looking, I'm like, man, he got just chocolate that. And certain I'm like, dude, you're 10 years in the game. Why in the world are you still with a 2 gene, no recessive chocolate female, chocolate anything? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah,
You're
I
right.
mean, that was it. It took a little bit to kick that. I mean, looking, and again, it happens. Losing focus. Just sitting there, really excited about something
Ran
here.
into some areas. Can't handle the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's a fighting battle. And I don't know if it's mainly because it's just me. I'm always in the room now. The wife, she does a lot of help and a lot of work for us, but when it comes to the actual everyday in the room, dealing with the animals, planning, buying animals for the projects or the goals that we have in a couple of years, it's all me. And sometimes I just get tunnel vision. And one of the biggest things that we ran into with that is, again, like you said, my main goal is chocolate. I That is one of my favorite genes. I want to be known for that. There's a lot of ideas that I brainstormed, of things that I want to do, things that just haven't been done. But when we look at what we've done, I myself, I'm like, man, I fell behind on that. Like, I didn't do that right. And it's like, we got to change that. We have
The
to get back
same
to the
thing
roots.
Aaron said. And he even, which you probably subconsciously think of it in a similar manner, but he's like, man, yeah, this 2 gene error. Yeah, but she gave me 11 eggs. And I'm like, so what, dude? I'm like, dude, she's an 11 egg layer. I'm like, so get her going, bro.
Well, and again, in the beginning, of course, for us, with again doing the shows and stuff like that. Okay, 11 animals. Let's say, on average, we look back at her records for a couple of years. We, on average, will say we kept, 3 or 4 animals from her. Okay, well, all the other stuff we can take to shows, and that's inventory. Inventory, yes, but bad inventory for stuff on the market that is just not moving is bad.
Right. Plus,
Especially,
I would be on the other. I would want to be on the other side of it, and the other side of it is still kind of bad, but in a better situation. Okay, cool. I got 11 animals. I got these animals. I got cool. I can fill my table. I'm going to these shows. I'm going to these shows. It's awesome. Sell some you don't do too well. Cool. We'll figure it out. I want to be on the other side. I produce the animals I need, the animals I want. I have some overflow, some byproduct. Dang, the show is coming up. I don't think I could fill the table, but I don't have to feed the animals that I don't have. Why am I doing the show?
yes and no. I
Yeah.
do, when it comes to shows, I do feel, and again, as we've talked before, this is a issue with not having a social presence, not having the online presence and trying to reach out to more customers or just more friends, like meeting more people, doing random conversations, podcasts, whatever it may be. You rely on those shows. It's great to have a good show following. The local shows, we're known. We team up with some people at different shows to do a bigger setup, everything like that. That's great, but you can't be everywhere. I mean, we were just talking about it. I would love to be able to get down to Florida, Texas, the bigger shows,
There you
California.
go.
But for me, it's just not, we're not, the travel and everything like that, it's just not physically.
And that goes toward the end of our conversation. We'll talk a little bit about the business planning of it because you're very smart when it comes to that. You've been on some really, really huge platform shows, and that is good thinking, in my opinion, of it. But at the same time, it's like, that sounds bad. I was gonna say renting versus buying. It's irrelevant. Let's just say starting off at whatever, whether it's a car, whether it's a used car, a beater car, and you want a Lamborghini. Do you get to that Lamborghini necessarily every single paycheck, whether you make $10,000 a week, but you spend $10,000 every week? You will never get there. Never. So sometimes the way I'm trying to reference it is have a jam up slam show. You have your following. Yes, sometimes it just may make sense, especially local shows, to go to the show and promo. Don't incur the expense. Don't, go and pay an admission ticket, record content, put yourself out there for social media. Therefore, if you can save 500 this show, 500 that show to make you leap forward, where you're able to buy into another program, get some of the things you need rather than constantly incurring costs without receiving the sales.
Yeah.
It has to make sense.
We definitely dealt with that over between 2022 and 2023.
And it's unknown. Again, none of this stuff is in concrete, but imagine, let's take 5 of your worst shows, and you never can guess what your worst shows is going to be. But you take 5 of the costs that you incurred in your worst shows. You mean to tell me you couldn't have flown out to Pomona to a Reptile Super Show for 2 days and say, hey, I'm here. I'm over here on the West Coast.
Yes.
Never see me. This is who I am. Come meet me.
Yeah.
You see, you have more growth in an area you've never been to instead of flushing that money consistently down. I'm just saying that's a game plan, a nice.
No, absolutely. And over the last, we'll say, year and a half, we've definitely looked at that. Like, of course, we want to be everywhere. I would want to be at every show. I want to have a setup at every show. But, like we just went over it, if we have bad shows and we're looking at this as a business, and that's another thing, it's really big being a hobbyist and being a business, especially with somebody like myself who is really trying to, I want nothing more than one day to be able to wake up, go downstairs, and that's my job.
Oh, yeah.
I
and
mean,
that's all across the U.S. I hear the stories actually from KG, Bomb Project. Shout out to them. Going out there to the Vegas show and being over there on the West Coast of things. And man, it's a different world. And it's
Absolutely.
not paid, but guess what? On the East Coast, when last year, bro, we didn't see a single stranger single gene on anyone's table at any of the shows we were going to on the East Coast. Nowhere. I mean, when you go out, obviously Tinley, you'll see some of that stuff. But I mean, you see people on their lives and everything on the West Coast. They got like the who's who. It's like I'm like, what in the world?
Well, and I think it's again, different breeders, different personalities, different likes, different. It's just so much that is open. And again, we deal with it all the time. People come to the smaller local shows and they're like, this is my first show, I've never seen it. And it's like, look, I'm 10 years in and I go to a Tinley Park and I'm like blown away because there's so much stuff, and that's just in the normal area that we're used to going back and forth to. I mean, it's there's so much out there, but again, you have to be smart about it, especially with us trying to move more into the business side. Are we a business or are we just doing this for fun?
There you go.
Well, when we started in 2014, my main goal was business. We need to start getting back on that grip and, doing the right thing for that, or come to grips with it not being a business.
Right.
And, a lot of that comes down to numbers, records, seeing how some years went, how the shows went. And, like we've touched base a little bit on, producing just to produce.
Right.
It'll tank you.
And there's different business strategies toward that. And like them or not, we do. You got to look at things like Wobex, and his operation. He's been on it for years. Again, we want to speak about him under good light. At the end of the day, he has the infrastructure to do what he's doing. So if he wants to produce 100 ivories and feed 100 ivories until they sell or whatever, he has the employees, he has the facility, he has all the infrastructure in place to do that. I think that is one of our biggest positive things that we can do. We identify with our brand level.
Yeah,
we are. I think people have a misconception on what it actually takes to do some of these things. If you produce, no matter what combinations you have, If you buy rodents in any capacity, whether it's for 25% of your collection, and your level of animals that you're producing is not on par, guess what? If you hold on to that animal past the length of time that you surpass the amount of rodents you put into that animal, you are in the
You're
red.
you start doing one of these.
Right. So, and then you have a bigger animal, a bigger non-sold animal with a ton of expensive rodents in that animal that will never rebound. And again, this is the business side of things. It will never rebound. So one or two things need to happen. Either that person would need to downsize, well, one of three things. That person would need to downsize, or that person needs to upgrade the level of animals they're working with, whatever lane they want to go in, or the last part, no one wants to do, you're gonna give away that animal at a loss.
Yeah, and I mean honestly, yeah, and I'm honest with it. You know, I got stuck. You know, well, I think this is I could get this if I don't move it for this, it'll stay here.
Right.
As times change, you know, and things, you know, new combos come out, or you know, old genes come to light, stuff falls down, you know, everything like that. You can't do that because again, you will literally sit there and feed an animal that now, if I look at my rat bill for this animal, you know, I'm at $1,000. Well, everybody else is selling theirs for 200, and what are you gonna do?
This is something that just popped up. Before we go to the next topic, I want to hear your opinion. We haven't spoken about this actually. Brandon Nixon Reptiles, he brings up a very important topic that I actually personally agree with. Um, when you're in a project that's been around for a while, you know, sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're cold. He's working with Sunset. We haven't worked with Sunset yet at all, but I think when you're producing normal, especially your males, because people are dumping their money on their males, become males. When you're producing normal het males, I feel, in my opinion, that if you end up with, I don't know, 10 or more through various breedings, where you have normal 100% het anything, we'll use Sunset for example, I think you should take, you know, I don't know, 1 to 3 of them and post them for what they are, you know, normal het Sunset males, see if you have any interest. Personally, between the amount of time it's going to take you to move all 10, you're going to fall right into that boat. I feel the majority of them, you need to wholesale them out as normals and get them moving. You're giving a benefit to your customer. It's a normal, they're going to pay a normal price. Get them out of your inventory so you no longer have to feed an animal that's already hard to move when it's priced as a normal het.
Oh, yeah. Um, my opinion on that is definitely I agree. We've found ourselves in a few different scenarios with that. I also think that it's good, like for us, some of our local shows, we have certain people that's what they look for. They look at, you know, having inventory. Um, and you know, honestly, yeah, at some point, you know, you're gonna find yourself in a situation where you just have to, you know, move them out as a wholesale. I'm not against the wholesaling thing. It happens, but wholesaling happens from overproduction.
Right.
And in my opinion, I don't want to sound bad, but I don't want to say bad planning, but you know, if you get those bad odds, you know, and you're stuck with all these, now you're sitting on them. That's one thing that we're trying to prevent, especially when we're going with het to het
Mhm.
versus visual and stuff like that. We really want to get rid of anything het, especially if our male side is not, you know, a het. Obviously, we upgrade our males. That's what we try to spend, you know, the bulk load of the project's, you know, funding on, because a powerful male is, you know, something important. But you know, you're gonna find yourself running into those things. But yeah, I don't. It's better to just get them out there because you don't know. Maybe you know somebody who you wholesale, their reach could be to a different group of people who are needing that.
Plus, we have to all, myself included, we're working on something as well. Thankfully, I have the painting behind Audra. right by my side, and she gives a lot of insight sometimes on different viewpoints. And even though you and I, we bounce things off ourselves, we have these men brains that aren't able to receive the feminine side of things and the different way of thinking. Hopefully, this is well received in the comments. But it's very, very helpful because sometimes you have to legitimately, when you cut your losses, you can gain from them. Another aspect of it, which we spoke about, and we actually did it when we did it with with flawless crested geckos. Guess what? If you have a healthy supply of animals, even if they are normals, maybe you want to put it out there for the sake of marketing and promotion and advertisement that it is 100% sunset. Nothing, you already stuck with the animal that's not moving. Who's to say, hey, you like, share, tag 3 people on Instagram, you're entered into a giveaway, and all you have to pay is shipping, whatever. But you do that maybe depending on your reach and how big your brand is, once a month, once every couple months. Not only do you gain reach and followers, but you're also able, Audra heard me, you're also able to move inventory that you no longer have to feed, um, which is absolutely amazing. So it's kind of a win-win situation, promotion and marketing. But we get so one-dimensional. Hey, I have a product. What you're going to pay for it? So it gets to that point.
And another thing, especially when it comes down to like, let's just, Brandon posted it up there, so we'll just poke at him a little bit. Let's say we're talking about, the het sunset males. If I'm wholesaling stuff, I put, if it's 50% head, 60% head, regardless if I'm giving them to a wholesaler, I still put that on there. Just, you do with the information what you want with it. If you want to try to prove that out, awesome. If it does, great. If not, I do that only because I've been on the side of like, there's splurge buyings, and it's like, okay, this is a good deal. We'll just grab this. And then, wait, this isn't supposed to come out of this. And it's like, oh, it was holding something. I definitely kind of, I don't know. That's a bummer, especially if
Yeah,
I would
I
say, especially
can see that.
more of like, not no shade at the gene or anything, but like albino. There is a lot of animals where it would be like, oh man, it's like, something had tri-stripe, pos had albino.
But see,
That
this is where I think I draw the line for me because I agree with what you're saying, but I'm more on the lines of wholesale. I'm not sure. I'm not going to speak for Brandon himself, but I'm more so on the lines that if you, whatever value you place on this animal, if you're going to truly wholesale it for legitimately, normal prices, it is what it is. Hey, I don't care if this is a triple head. If I'm going to sell it as a normal male, I don't really think you're doing any injustice with that because the person that's buying it is not buying that animal typically to breed it. They are buying that animal as a pet. If you're wholesaling it probably 15, 20, 25 bucks max to move your inventory, that person who's buying is probably going to sell it to a pet store or maybe someone give it to someone for their first pet. Is typically no one is buying wholesale animals specifically to breed and what they're going to create.
agreed. Yeah, like I said, with me, even if we're wholesaling, I'll put it on there just to do it because, again, the biggest thing is, am I pricing that animal
Right.
as a wholesale, or am I pricing that animal as a het sunset, or I have 15, and we did it with Pied. I don't want to poke Brandon too much, but we did it with Pied. We had a ton of Orange Dream het Pied stuff, a ton. Like, I think in one season I probably hit, when we were really focused on the Orange Dream Pied stuff years ago, in one season I hit like 20, I think it was like 20 some Orange Dream het Pied males. And that, yeah, and it's just, it's too much. But they weren't, when we wholesaled some of them, they weren't wholesaled, hey, this is Orange Dream het, 100% het pie. No, this is a wholesale. It's one price. And I've changed, we deal with some pet stores, we deal with some actual breeders that Ben shows that's they look to certain breeders and they buy a big group of animals. It's all the same. So I don't think it hurts to like put it on there. I mean, I don't have anybody that bought an animal wholesale from somebody and was like, hey man, that 50% het proved out. I don't have any of that. But at the same time, I feel like I'd rather have that and do that versus somebody be like, hey man, I bought this animal. Somebody said it was produced by you. It screwed up my project because that possible het albino proved out.
Right.
And it's like, well, then you got to go through that. So I don't
So,
know. But in the beginning, through all of that, like I did see that Brandon mentioned that when you are moving, especially with recessive, double recessive, triple recessives, when you get more into that, you want to have the best odds, which ideally, if you can't do visual to visual, visual to 100% hets. We did, years ago, mess around with a lot of 66 hets, 50% hets that proved out, some didn't, but now we're like, if I'm looking into adding something to the project, I won't even really pay attention to 50% just because I mean, we can test it if it's something that we really want to get into, but for the majority of the part, if it's not a visual 100% hit, we kind of just keep moving to see what else is out there. But
cool. Technical
difficulties.
Yeah. Let's get to the next topic is how many snakes were purchased in 2023?
So I was actually looking at this, and I'm gonna rephrase that on what was brought in. We really didn't purchase too many. I think we only purchased like 3 or 4, but we did do some trading throughout the year with some of our buddies, Brandon being one of them. But total animals brought in, we did 10, 3 males and 7 females.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah, a few. I mean, and it wasn't any splurge buys. I can say that, which is really good. That's why I looking at that number, 10 animals brought in, to me, honestly, that's a little bit high. My goal really was to probably look at like maybe 5 investments like for the year. That's kind of just a number that I had in my head. But when we were building up with 2023 being a big double, triple recessive, building those projects, you just find come across some stuff that is ready for that project and it just fits.
Hey, I've seen some of them, Brandon, some of them girls he should have kept. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, man. You know who has the worst buyer seller's remorse? Me.
Yeah, you should.
Especially when you go through.
I'm gonna rub it in. Yeah, you should.
It happens, but again, as much as it sucks and it's painful, learning curve. We know now. We look at every, we're doing a clutch like, the end of 2023 hatching out, and our last clutch was late in 23, but it hatched out in January. Mm-hmm. We looked at that clutch, like we hit one female that was really, really good. And it's a het, it's just 3 gene het female, but that is one that there's no question. It's right to the whole back rack. We're not going to question it. And moving forward with some of the visuals that, we're planning to either produce this year, I know the goals and I know where we want to be in a couple of years. So I know, hey, if I want to get there, I gotta keep it. And so that's something that, like, again, Will with RCR up in Canada, he said that to me and it stuck with me. It's one of those things that's conflict money now. And I don't even want to look at it mainly as the money aspect, but again, we're a business, so we do have to follow the projects and make it worth it. So money now, we'll say random, $5,000 now, or 5 years from now, that actual project is already elevated to be $30,000 or $40,000 and able to excel in your other project.
Yep.
So I stopped, looking at additions, like stuff that we bring in. Everybody's always focused on, I need my investment right away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're already set up for it and you have that one animal that, everything works out great, perfect. But 9 times out of 10, it never works out that way. So we start thinking, what are his, if we bring a male in, what are his babies going to be producing? That's where we want to have our brains at.
You need to. You
Yeah.
need. And what was your rodent bill?
Our rodent bill for 2023 was around 7,000.
Okay.
Now I did something different too. So with us, we do not do our own rodents, which there's a lot of things with that are good and bad. Mainly bad. Overhead is huge. That's $7,000 rodent bill that we pay a year. That is a lot, especially if we do again touch base on, not having a strong online presence where most of our sales are focused really around shows. Shows don't, aren't doing good. That rodent bill never stops. And then for us, because we don't, produce our own rodents, we have to go and pick them up. So we totaled out, because of the drive for where we get rodents, I spent 159 hours driving 2023 just to drive the commute to get rodents and get back.
So $7,000 plus 159 driving hours.
And I mean, I was just like messing around when you and me were talking about what we were going to go over, and I was like, I wonder how many hours, like, because we have the trip, it's roughly an hour trip there, hour trip back. But obviously we get our rodents, we talk to our buddy who we get our rodents from. So we sit there and we accumulate that time. So 159 hours, even though it might not seem a lot through a whole year, that is so much. If I was to do my own rodents, not only would that $7,000 bill drop significantly, then that 159 hours, now I could be doing content for 3 hours, or, focusing on more, whether it's videos or cleaning or just, whatever else. That's 159 hours I could get back. It's crazy. I mean, I know a lot of people, they don't want to do rodents. Me personally, I did them before on a small scale, and the outweigh of the good outweighed the bad of doing the rodents. The pluses, we would love to be able to just walk in and be like, oh, okay, you're hungry, let's go get some rats out of the shed and let's just come in and feed on a random day. And again, like we were talking about before, we really want to push, hopefully before the end of 2025, to be producing rodents, like our own rodents. And I want to be producing enough to cover the whole collection.
Right.
I know that 2024 is probably going to be a little hard building up to that, so we still buy, and we're currently, one of the main goals is to get the building up for rodents to start our own. But in the long run, it's definitely way easier. And again, the overhead, like our biggest overhead besides our show expenses and hotels, the biggest overhead that we have here is rodents.
Mm-hmm. And Mickey said you were spending that time that you spent commuting, caring for your rodents, which is accurate, but at least you'd be home.
But honestly, and again, I have to give you props, Will. We talk to people who do rodents. Mm-hmm. You guys just recently, not long ago, started your own,
right?
And it's all on the setups, right? So when we were doing it before, again, we were in a single townhouse, so we were doing them in their snake room. The collection was nowhere near the size it is now, but again, it's inside, so your cleaning is more to keep the smell down, everything like that. But that's just because we didn't go through and be like, okay, well, how can we make this a good thing and make it easy for us?
Right.
No, we just started breeding rodents. Okay, we got rodents, let's go with it. There's things that you can learn from others, and you're one, like when we get our building up, where you and me are, going back and forth about it already. Right. There's ways that you can do it to where negate the time that it's going to take you to do all the rodents. Buy the extra tub so that everything is easier for you.
Yes.
And, now, even out of that 159 hours, let's say we take 2 hours a week, you're still less. But again, like you said, I'd rather spend that time cleaning my rodents because I'm home.
Yep.
I'm literally saving a ton of money, wear and tear on the vehicle, time out, and who knows, hey, if I get, maybe 1 week we have some helpers and, we get it done in, 45 minutes to an hour. Boom,
And
now you got all that other time.
perfect, because we've structured ours, and we're no pros at it, but in stages now, man. And the amount of time, if you could split it up where you can kind of stage we double everything. So we have double the amount of tubs of all our rodents, and we can go in, not touch a rodent, and say, all right, we got clean rodents, and spend 35 minutes prepping every replacement tub, every single one, and say, oh, we got to run and go get the kids, got to go food shopping, run and go do that. Come back and spend the next 35 minutes swapping out clean tub for dirty tubs and moving rodent babies over, and then stack the dirty tubs. Go do what you got to do. And then for us, thankfully enough, we send the kids out and, hey, I go clean out them dirty tubs and wash them, scrub them. But even if we were doing it ourselves, it stages in the sense where you're not kind of bogged down with, I need to do 2 hours of work right now.
Yeah.
And you're at home. So it's definitely,
and or if you're behind,
right.
Something happens, you're behind, again, we go back to the show thing. Oh, we're out for a show, this whole weekend, or we're taking a week to go do this show. Yep. You gotta, mix in that time to do all that stuff. But I also think that the rodent production, I'm actually kind of glad that we're at the point where we're at right now, because with trying to get rodent production going and restructuring the whole inner works of the company, we've downsized. Like I said, last year, we've sold 29 adults, and we still have, I think, around 12 adults to get rid of. So we're already lowering the amount of the collection that's going to be feeding while we're trying to grow up the rodent production. Right. We definitely don't want to get overrun and, do rodents as a full-time job because we have a collection of 500 animals. No. Right. But once we get our numbers to where everything works, it's just going to go smooth.
Yeah, and that's the way it got to be. You got to work within the constraints of your own planning. Shoot, I believe me, I understand. Audra, she mentions it all the time. She's like, our feed bill is 15 grand a year. How are we going to bring that down? So, we'll figure it out. And we kind of came up with a way. It may not be the way, but it's a way.
I mean, whatever, if it works, man. I mean, the biggest thing is, obviously everybody, talks about, how the market shifted. I'm not going to say bad or dropped or anything like that. How it evolved to the times of what we're dealing with. We were a prime example of that collection in 2023, where shows were slow, sales were slow, but that rodent bill it still kept going. And honestly, we seen the bad things that happen with that, a lot of overhead again. So it's one of those things where we learn from it and try to, move forward. And we have a goal now to try to help us with that. So.
And on that topic, on that note, what's the number of shows that you did in 2023?
11.
So you did 11 shows in 2023. What's the average cost of a show?
Minus Tinley, because that's the most expensive. My average, I'm going to say, is probably right around $250.
Okay. Now, does that include, your average shows are near you, so you're not doing hotels?
Yes. Majority of our shows, besides 3 out of the 11, are all local.
Okay. So that makes
when I say local, I kind of consider local within a 2-hour drive.
So $850. Okay. So you're right at $2 grand just for the 8 shows.
Yeah.
Okay. Monkey wrench in the outline we had. So it brought me to thinking as well, because we talked about this throughout the year. So it's kind of throwing you under the bus. But for the whole 2023 year, now you're vending, now you're going to the shows, you're making sure your display cases are laid out. I've seen you send me pictures, you got them laid out, you're planning what snake is going where, you're well thought out, everything's ready to rock and roll. You've also been on Morph Market. I will ask you this: out of the 12 months of the year, has there ever been a specific month or maybe all the months that your inventory is mirroring what you truly have available on Morph Market every single month?
Yes, everything.
So every month it's to the T. It's been all right.
Yeah.
20.
The only thing that we do, we kind of slack on a little bit, is like kind of small updates, like updated weights of like certain animals. But I'm trying to get better with that. I'm trying to get more in depth with that. Other than that, like when we go to a show, if we move, let's say we move 10 animals, that the whatever, when I'm putting stuff away, doing treatments, getting everybody back organized, we immediately go to Morph Market, take off everything that's not available.
That's awesome. That's
Just
awesome.
because I have ran into it to where somebody messages me, hey, I want this animal. And, you know, most of the time, whether I forget it, it's sold at the show, but I've had it to where Rachel sells an animal. And, you know, somebody messages me, I'm having that conversation. And I'm like, yeah, everything's good. Let me go check the room. Because I always do that. As soon as I get an inquiry, if we have the time and we're able to, we immediately go down, make sure that that tub is not marked with any notes, anything like that. Hey, boom, here we go. Everything is good. We can move forward. I've had it happen to where it's like, okay, let me just we'll send you the invoice, and then I go downstairs and I'm like, why does that have sold on it? Like, oh man. And then you have to, you have to go through the thing. And with us, I always try to work with everybody who is considering Morphed Out Reptiles as, their new addition. But sometimes you have that one animal and somebody's like, dude, I need that. That's exactly what I'm looking for. The number is perfect for what I want to stay in my range. And then you have to be that guy to be like, hey, I'm sorry, that was sold. I didn't update. And even me, like, just that, oh man, that's cool. Okay. And then you'll never hear from that person again because that, like, that person felt some type of way about that. If we could try to eliminate that, I want to.
It's very, very difficult. We haven't had that yet on the ball python side, but on the crescent gecko side, oh my goodness! I think we had that.
I do it all the time. Like, honestly, when you guys do that stuff, I don't even though I take like 50 million screenshots, I don't even, the top 5, I don't even message you about because they're gone.
They're gone, man. With the reach, we would love to elevate Flawless Exotic Creations to the type of reach Flawless Crested Geckos get. But our inventory and different size and length of time that we've started these businesses, I mean, they really can't compare. And it's just kind of growing pains. You kind of go through that. But the amount of animals we deal with on the Crested Gecko side, and being
way too much.
Oh man. And having, like you said, when you're having Rachel, we having 2 heads of this animal rocking and rolling. Audra's dealing with customers. I'm dealing with customers. We're both answering emails and texts. It's absolutely insane. So, and you mix that with the fact of you having an online inventory, you having an actual online store independent away from Morph Market where people can purchase things online. And then you go and then we started taking different animals to vend with because it was that chaotic. We would have an animal sell in the earlier stages online while we're at a show and it's on our table and it sells at the show. Guess what? You can't ship that animal out because it's not there anymore.
And I mean, I also look at it as this. I don't know if, maybe some people do. Maybe it's just me being picky. When you run into that, like, let's for instance, let's say we go to a show, an animal's there, and somebody buys it off a Morph Market. They're like, "Hey, boom, prime payment sent." You're in the middle of a show, and you're like, okay." Me, I don't ship that animal right away.
Right.
Like, even if it sells, that's cool. But like, we welcome all sales, whether it's at a show or whatever. If we do a video at the show, somebody sees something, hey, shoot us a message. We can mark sold on there, but we will not ship it for at least a few weeks because, in my opinion, we're at a show, so we want to get it back, make sure, quarantine, everything like that, treatments, stuff like that, just in case, because again, that can be a little tricky of a situation. Something happens at a show, God forbid, more so on the snake side than the gecko side. I know that's a little bit different, but just little things that we look at. But I mean, it sometimes you find yourself in the mix of those.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but that's yeah, we I try to stay as updated on, you know, Morph Market, or, you know, if we're just going through and I'm like, hey, we decided to list some of these holdbacks, I try to immediately put them back on there, make sure that everything's up to date so that we have that, because in the end of it, it also saves me time. If
Absolutely.
if I get 10 emails and everybody wants to see a different animal, if I have it on Morph Market, I just send it right over for the Morph Market.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, they'll ask you for a million pictures, everything like that.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
More pictures on Morph Market, updated weights. We try to get like the weight stuff like at least once a month. I want to get into the habit of doing that at least once a month. Once a month, we do a recap, check everything online. We just went through and did, you know, a current weight on everything here, and just stay more on top of that so that it eliminates more, you know, questions. Hey, can we get more pictures, current weight? Hey, everything's on Morph Market, it's already updated, we just updated it. Let me know if you have anything from there.
We did it slightly on both brands, slightly a little different, but along the same lines, because we find that when people get, especially customers, get excited about their next purchase, which they should.
Oh, absolutely.
They you know, they want, oh, can I get current pictures? Some people overlook it, but I mean, I'm sure it's the same thing with geckos as well as snakes. Sometimes you literally, like, it's the 17th today and you just posted fresh pictures on the 13th. And I'm like, can I get current pictures? I'm like, these are current. And that's what you're thinking. Like, these are current. But we never respond that way. You know, to me, there's a certain level of customer service you need to provide your customer. So, yeah, we will refer them over to, hey, we'll either send them the actual pictures from the post or send them the post. And now we've got to the point with the ball pythons and crested geckos that we have on our MacBooks, we have files. So we'll, you know, depending on how long we have that animal, we'll send you the last 4 or 5 photographs of the updates all the way to the present, which is the present is still the current photos, but at least you're giving them something else to look at through the growing phases of those animals that they're inquiring about. Because everybody's not looking at it as a business. Some people just legitimately want their next, you know, their next animal, their next pet. I think the customer service side of things, I think trying to perfect that is a whole different type of craft. I think some customers expect a certain level of respect, which they should receive, but
Absolutely.
then some customers, I don't think, understand the animals quite much, and those are the ones that you don't kind of shame them, but you have to handle them differently. Than you would normally do. Like if your first response is, "Oh, this person's crazy," you can't really put that in a message.
You know, honestly, I think you know, again, shout out to Bob Boo. I just seen a post about this, and somebody was like, "Man, they were like really like going in on somebody for like a post or something like that." I don't remember exactly what it was, but Bob was like, "Dude, that dude's like right down the street from me. Hey, this is a teaching moment."
Right.
He'll reach out and like help that person. So I agree with exactly what you're saying. Hey, you know, those customers, of course, if we just did photos 2 days ago,
right,
you don't want to be like, man, these are current. Come on, man. Like, just pay attention. Like, look at the updated post. No, you can't be like that. You just take everything. You know, sometimes it's frustrating, but hey, there's a lot of things that are frustrating. But the way that I try to look at it is, you know, as many animals that are on Morph Market, if you're inquiring about one of my animals, you are literally choosing me out of 60,000 ball pythons.
There you go.
The least that I can do is take the time and answer your questions. I definitely get it, like when you get the same stuff over and over and over again from the same ones. But I mean, and again, Brandon, I see that you just put that up there. I love what Brandon does.
Man,
photos,
he's
videos,
incredible. Like, I inboxed him because he made a real short. And I'm like, dude, you know, and it wasn't no shade thrown at Morph Market. They got a whole bunch of crap going on, but it was like it was almost like a full blown like I mean, commercial.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Dude,
I watched that and I was like, "Come on, bro, you're doing too much. You make me."
I'm like, dude, you look that. I'm like, man, they needed to pay you for this commercial, man. This is.
When again, I think a lot of people, again, hats off to Brandon for that type of marketing. Not only for Morph but for himself. Like,
oh yeah,
when you do that, like, and me, I'm computer savvy, but I still am trying to learn all the reels and all the weird stuff. It takes time.
Leviathan as well. Oh my gosh, they're doing docu-series, and they're doing and people would think to say, oh well, they're new, they're over. I don't think so. I think that's what the industry needs.
I love seeing, like, I don't want to say like weird new stuff, but just random things. Absolutely. Like, again, with what Brandon did, you don't really see, like, again, I know exactly what video you're talking about because
loved it.
I was like, dude, this is a commercial. Like,
and for anyone listening, if you guys don't want to comment and you guys want to just inbox us and say, hey, go ahead and do that on Instagram or Facebook, whatever your platform of choice is. We love anybody in the comments. We've been sharing everybody. We love sharing everybody's content, your available animals, whatever it is. We love sharing it because we don't feel that supporting other people in the same field is going to bring us down.
Has nothing to do with me or you of what everybody else is doing. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the hardest things that people can't get around. If I see, especially, I mean, you guys, all of our close friends, Brandon, if everybody is doing good and you had a great year, that is amazing. Hats off to you. I'm super happy, whether you did 1 clutch or 100. But nobody's success has anything to do with us.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's no, I hate that competition thing. There's no competition. We're all here making cool animals, and there's so much that we can learn from everybody else. Like, as soon as I seen Nixon do that video, I was like, man, I gotta step my game up. Like,
see, I look at everything. I'm like, oh man, I gotta get on this. It's huge. So with the shows, last question on the shows is 1 day show versus 2 day shows.
11 shows total. 6 were 1 day shows. 5 were 2 day shows.
So wow, you do a healthy amount of 1 day shows. Now, in general, from what I've heard, we've never done one. We have no experience doing any 1 day shows. So this is a genuine question. So it's not preloaded. Do you find 1 day shows to be better or worse than 2 day shows?
It's very tricky. Me personally, I like 2 day shows, and I like shows like Tinley Park and ARBC shows. I like that you have like that. It's technically like 2.5 days. Yeah, 3 days, because when we're setting up Fridays, you have your VIP. I like that because it's more.
Except for us, because we can never get set up in time.
Never. Yeah. But the 1 day shows are a lot of local shows. Mm-hmm. I do like that because it kind of helps when you get that person who's really looking at an animal and they're like, man, I really like that. It doesn't give enough time in person, I want to say. Right. When you only have, hey, we're done at 4:00, then that's the next show isn't for a couple months, because we have a couple shows that we do, like the Gettysburg Reptile Expo. That's a 1 day show every like 3 to 4 months.
Right.
You're limiting when you're interacting with that customer or somebody's like really pushing for that animal. You're right in that mix. Versus a 2 day show, somebody comes by day one and they're like, man, I don't want to put all, drop all my stuff day one, but I love this animal. They come back Sunday, last day, that animal's gone. Mm-hmm. Like, man, that sucks.
I think it's like tough. What do you feel about the argument of there being too many shows versus, because I'm kind of split on it. I'm always a proponent of shows, always going to be a proponent of shows, a supporter of shows. But at the same time, I do feel, being a customer and a vendor, both, I feel that a decrease of shows will legitimately increase sales. That's my opinion.
I mean, yes, I will
Feel
agree.
like if a customer, you gotta look at it from a customer, and I think that's the hardest thing for every breeder to look at it from a customer's perspective, whether it's a pet or a breeder. I come to your table and oh, this animal's cool. Okay, well, you know what? I'll see if I don't get it this week, maybe I'll get it next weekend or in 2 weeks when you do your next show. If my mindset is okay, I need a certain specific animal and I'm here looking for it and I find it and I know there's not another show in my area for 2 months, 3 months, I'm going home with this animal.
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about it at all.
I do think that it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of shows. Now, we only did 11. Now, that between those 11 shows, that was for 3 companies. So that's 3 different show companies just multiple times throughout the year. I am very picky on what shows I do and what shows I will support because I will say no shade thrown at anybody, no names, but there are certain things that you should be doing when you are running a show.
That's a whole nother time. We're gonna have to do a whole separate.
I agree.
That
I think
you
we
and
should.
I will talk. We'll brainstorm on that. Everything I like to talk about, guys. Personally, I like to offer up suggestions for ways to solve a particular problem. I don't like to kind of beat a dead horse. Oh, this is the problem. Blah 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 blah, and never offer a solution because then, in my opinion, I feel like you're becoming part of the problem if you're not trying to offer up some type of solution. We're in a weird spot because being a vendor and being an online seller or breeder, I find it in a weird gray area because wrong, right, and different. There, you got to understand there are going to be ticket sales. There's going to be vendor fees for tables. Either way, even if people don't show up, the only thing that the promoters have to deal with is upset vendors. But guess what? That vendor will continue to vend upset show after show after show. So
Guilty.
essentially, the promoter never loses. So we
Guilty.
need to figure out something.
I mean, yeah. But I will say I think that I do agree that, especially in our area, because we're really close to PA, which PA is a big state, and they have quite a lot of shows. There is certain times, like was just mentioned, on the the pinned one. There's pretty much a show every weekend. I just heard that there was a show this weekend, and I didn't even
Yeah.
know about it. There's a show today. There's a lot.
But you got to look at it like it. There is no we. We can't solve the problem if we don't solve the problem. So, if I throw myself in there, Flawless is going to do a show, and if all the parameters and all the infrastructure is not right, that means promoting, marketing, having the right vendors in the right places, trying to be as accompanying as possible. Guess what? I'm still gonna get paid by all these vendors. And if I don't do any promoting at all, I'm still gonna get paid by all the vendors. I may not get
Well, and I think that is another thing that revolves down to on a business aspect, right? And we talked a little bit about that. You know, we did a couple shows for a little bit, and we're taking a break from those shows because as much as it is great to be out there, and obviously if you're not at the show, you don't know what's going to move. You can't advertise yourself, put yourself out there, talk to people that you won't see every day. At the same time, some of those shows, when you look at the overhead, it might not be as well as you expected. And don't get me wrong, advertising is always key.
Oh yeah.
We understand that you have to spend money to make money. You have to put yourself out there to get the interest in your company or your projects or something like
But
that.
power in numbers, and that's where I know it sounds weird being down here in South Carolina, as Audra put it, because we're in like a union-free state. But to a certain extent, I think that mindset. Hopefully, I don't annoy anyone in the comments, but that mindset is probably needed when it comes to the reptile community, because you have people that have maybe financially supported the system and their promoters, and they're trying to do positive thing for the community. But you need that, event coordinator to meet up with collaboration, organize the collaboration of vendors that says, hey, this is what we demand of you on your part to ensure that we are going to show up. Whether we do well or not is irrelevant because we've been dealing with the same BS anyway. But we need this. This is what we demand of you. And nothing crazy, but this is what we demand of you. X, Y, and Z amount of weeks or months of promotion, letting us see what's happening, whatever it may be. But if these things are not met, we aren't vending. That's the problem. Because if just us decide we're not going to vend, that's not going to hurt the motor.
Your tables are replaced and you're off the list. That's
Absolutely. So
nothing.
it's almost a union mindset that's needed, sadly enough to be said. But that's a whole other show topic that we will get into and hopefully better the community in that regard. But let's touch on the topic of business planning. So specifically around pairings and holdbacks, because business planning could be a whole nother video in and of itself. So when you're doing your, let's say for instance, pairings for 2024 now, coming off a rough a year of 2023, you're still restructuring. It takes time. What goes into some of the thought process on what you're going to pair? Is it strictly for your holdbacks or for kind of a little bit of both? What can you produce and make available to your customers? Which way are you pretty much leaning?
After, well, with the 2023, we did a lot of the, again, double, triple recessives, mainly for in-house. We did achieve the goal, 29 animals to in-house holdbacks, which is great. 2024, with what we have paired, it's been like 50-50. We've only probably guaranteed, I think we're up to, 6 clutches so far already. Whether that means good growth, with the females and pairings, or we have a few that have ovulated already.
Mm-hmm.
It really revolves around what is this pairing, worst case scenario, the lowest that we would get. How is that going to help our project?
Okay.
And I really wanted to look at it that way because when getting into more of the double and triple recessive projects, it's already going to be really hard to hit those animals.
Right.
So instead of going the same route that we did for a couple of years, realizing that, hey, it doesn't work that good. We're not breeding just to breed. I'm not putting something together just to make some of these. And hey, if I get one of these, it'll be cool. Yeah, but that's going to be held back. So then you're stuck with a bunch of animals that are not relevant.
There we go. We're talking about that. Yeah.
But at the same time, we're also, because of what animals we do have ready for the year, we have a few to where it's like, oh my God, I'm so excited about doing this pairing. But then you look out there and it's like, well, hey, this is actually pretty cool because I don't see any of these genetics together out there available. So It's kind of the same. And one in particular that we would, say about is the Redhead Hypo Lace Project.
Right.
You don't see those genetics. Now, I'll tell you right now, if we get lucky and we hit a bunch of them, they're not for sale. They're holdbacks. But anyways, I'm the type of person, look, if I can hit, let's say just 5 animals that are really good,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to pay attention to those 5 animals, and maybe I don't need all 5. Maybe I can get away with 4.
Right.
I can release one. We did that with, the triple head G-stripe hypo clown stuff. We made enough to have our, 6 holdback animals. I released 1 pair.
Right.
It's not anything crazy, but hey, it's something getting out there. So we've really been just like paying attention. Again, 2024, I'd rather have 10 clutches that every clutch is a good clutch versus, man, if I get 5 eggs and I don't hit something, then I have a bunch of single gene animals. I don't want that. And I do know that, you know, with doing it that way, yeah, there might be some times where we have to cancel a show, or I might only have stuff available until the summertime and then we might be sold out. But again, I would rather slim everything down and have it better productions, because nobody is mad, you know, when they go through a year, 6 months into the year, we've sold out of all of our for sale stock. We have to cancel all of our shows vending wise because we're sold out. No, nobody's going to be mad about that. That's a great thing to have and a great problem.
Plus, it
But
alleviates a lot of a headache because even though there's a lot of pleasure in the shows, but guess what? Now you can legitimately go in a different realm of business because now you can go to said shows that's locally and enjoy it. You will be, and which is another video. Be morphed out reptiles, morphed out reptiles, morphed out everything, morphed out reptiles, and lime green, and walking to, and everyone's like, "What in the world?" You know, we tend to do that at Tinley. Wearing my little
I got
wig.
some ideas in the works.
Yeah, you know,
But you know,
and you can
it's,
have fun.
and I've been in that point to where we do a lot of animals and all of our production was at the end of the year. Well,
Right.
winter time shipping is done. You're not shipping anything. Your shows are not moving anything. So now you're at the end of the year and you're like, hey, let's look back at what's left. Oh wow, we have 65 animals from last year. That's a lot. So you know, again, it's just trying to stay focused on, you know, is it worth it, or is it something that we can, you know, try to do a little bit better?
Right.
And you know, again, I, you know, always shout out to a lot of the people that are particularly that help me and take the time to like conversate back and forth with me. It's just one of those things, man. I would rather cut our production in half for
Mm-hmm.
clutch wise, but all of those animals, you know, half of those animals were holdbacks and half of them sold immediately like that because they're just, you know, mid to top tier animals versus, hey, we did you know, 100 babies,
Yep.
only 5 of, you know, 15 of those will say were, you know, good odds, so they were good animals. Everything else is pos had 50%, had 66, whatever. You're sitting on them.
Plus, it goes back to the planning stages, or you mentioned way back when earlier in the vid that your infrastructure, you started adding, you know, V18 racks, which was awesome, you know, to make sure that you were able to house everything. Um, and it gets into not really weird. I guess you just have to pay attention to what's going on. For us, for example, our business planning area, where we want to make sure that we never get put into that. We want to have, it sounds crazy, but we want empty tubs. We want empty tubs where, you know what, your existing stock, your existing inventory has paid your overhead. So you're not necessarily worrying about having to fill that tub with something within a timely frame. I want to have empty tubs, empty tubs, empty tubs for the Flawless brand. We just did the whole, just more of a, it's just a rack, guys. So we're not kind of like putting out there like we did something crazy. But the Fort Knox post, you know, we did 17 levels of the new 1078 from ARS. It's 102 tubs. We want to basically get that here. We already have completely empty V18 racks. Like, and the point is, when we're having these clutches, no matter what happens, we want to make sure we're never put into a bind where we're like, we have these awesome animals, but now we have to sell this. We have to drop price on this. We need this out the door. Personally, I think that's the worst business approach to any business, is letting out kind of the cat out of the bag that, you know, to your customers that you're in distress. We see it all the time. It's just a blanket statement. We don't think that's positive for any business to say, hey, we overproduced whatever we were working with and we need to kick them out of the door. So we're running this amount sale. But now, as the seller, I'm getting frustrated because we're being inboxed. And let's say I have a $2,000 animal, I'm going to move it out because I need the tub space for $1,000. It's not even necessarily I'm in financial, you know, restraints. It's just I need that tub space. But now I'm getting annoyed with my customer because my customer inboxed me for this $2,000 animal offering me 500. It's my fault. I told my customer that I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do something, just do it. You know, if
And
you're
I think
gonna,
it starts a downward spiral. I mean, and then it's even more frustrating when you have to do that and it still isn't moving.
right, right.
And we've noticed that with all the adults that we released last year. I was telling you, it's so weird to come into the room and look at all the open tubs, and it's like, man. But then, really, none of these tubs are open. We look at the holdback rack, and we have like 7 tubs that are not filled after all the holdbacks are to size and going into their breeding tubs.
Yep.
Which is great. I mean, it's definitely a better feeling to know, like, hey, I can literally keep all 20 of these females, and they already got a spot. We're already ready. And again, when we have some pretty cool clutches coming up this year, who's to say we don't hit 10, 10 eggs, and 9 of those 10 are just animals like, I can't get rid of this.
Right. And that's what place you want to be. You want to be, but I think starting, is very difficult because you're trying to build the infrastructure and your collection at the same time. Infrastructure wise, we probably hatchlings and everything, we probably can house 1,000 snakes. That's never really the plan. Our plan, the legitimate business plan, is 200 breeders. That's the ceiling. I mean, literally breeders, everything breed. But that's where we're pretty much branded at. Will we have that? I doubt it.
But even still, like, people think about that and they're like, man, that's a little number when you're looking at, the bigger guys and stuff like that. And it's like, dude, if everything goes perfect, that is a lot.
It's a lot. And it's still boutique. And boutique, and keep throwing that out there. Boutique means, listen, we're all doing ball pythons or doing some type of reptiles. You're shooting for something. We're not breeding any normals to normals. We're not producing animals to pretty much just produce animals. Every single one of our clutches, we have a goal holdback that we're chasing in hopes of hitting it. But if we don't hit that animal, we're still making some really, really cool combos, but they'll end up being available. And we'll make them available as they get meals. Now we kind of harp on, feeding them exactly the way they needed to be fed. We don't want to maintenance feed. Nothing against anyone that's doing that. That's just our business plan. That's why we incur such a costly rodent bill, 15 grand a year. But the way we see it, if we can feed them the way they need to be fed, and we're already above the median when it comes to the cost of that program, whatever that program may be. If you're having $1,000 snakes, it's not that big of a deal to pay $1.50 a week to feed that animal every single week without fail, unless the animal doesn't want to eat, obviously. But that being said, if it takes that $1,000 animal, whether male or female, till it's 800 grams to actually sell and leave your collection, you're still winning. I mean, even if it costs you $50 to get it to the size that it's at, you're still winning. You want to make sure that these type of measures are in your business plan for you to win. If you work with a lower end animal and you're in the trenches that we refer to, because you're chasing an animal that brings you excitement, that's something that you choose to do. Make sure that you do all your checks and balances, and it's not an animal that you can just go and morph right in and go buy the animal that you're searching for and creating, because then you can buy that one animal that you want and put all your energy into that instead of producing all of them, keeping one or two, and you're being stuck with 10 of them.
or try to produce them, and you're 2 to 3 years, and we see that a lot. Look, some people have great luck, but some combos, you can hit it the first year. It might take you 6-7 years to hit it.
Exactly, which that's the main goal. So what I want to touch before we close out everything for today, because I have my vision as far as on holdbacks. So the way we address holdbacks, some of our parents are pretty crazy. We're trying to get in our own little lane and our own little niche. But holdbacks, a lot of time when we hatch out stuff, if we set two different guidelines. Number one, are those animals male or female? Are they available on the market? And if they are, what's the price point? All right. So those are just two of the guidelines we try to go by, and it influences our pairings on what we're going to do and whether we're going to hold that animal back or not. If we do a pairing in which we produce, let's say we produce at this stage, and there's nothing wrong with it because we love blackhead, but let's say you produce a single gene blackhead het clown female, and you want a clown, you know, a blackhead clown or a blackhead combo head clown, whatever. That's something that you're chasing. Do you keep that animal and hold it back, or do you sell that animal? And for us, even though that's a project that we would want to have in house, we still would turn around and sell that animal. And because of those very two guidelines we started with, is those animals available on the market? Absolutely. What's the price point on that animal? If I can go out here and get a blackhead het clown female for $250, why in the world am I holding that back? What's the next step I'm trying to take it to? If I need a visual, okay, cool. I'm going out here. I'm going to sell this one for the 250. Take that 250 or whatever you get from it, put whatever you have to it, and go out and get the clown version of it. You know, where are you going with your holdbacks? We want to hold back stuff that's just not on the market. Yes, we're going to hold those back, males and females. But typically, we tend to buy our males and hold back our females because they're either extremely high, you know, $1,500, $3,000 and more. We're probably going to hold back some of the females for future programs. What's your take on some of that?
Around the same. I used to have a way different aspect on it. I used to be female heavy. Like our holdbacks, if it's female, stays everything. But then you get wrapped up with having a lot, and like our collection now, like I was even surprised a little bit of myself. Like we're looking at the you know, the numbers that are just basic numbers for this video, 20 males to 64 females. Our males are a little bit on the low side, and you and me just recently covered this. We have certain projects that we are more worried about that we want to sell, especially with us, like the chocolate stuff. It's another thing we kind of let it slide away for a couple of years, even though we had stuff growing up. Okay, hey, now it's time to stop playing. We need to start focusing back on the chocolate stuff because I want to put that stuff out there. We're looking at it. Okay, our females, pretty good. We got a good lineup of females. What's our males look like? I mean, it's good, but could it be better? Absolutely, it could be better because we're using a mediocre male that's still decent, but the stuff that he's going to breed and produce, worst case scenarios, where's that stuff on the market? How easy is that? How open is that? How much is out there? Oh, wait, the market's flooded with it. Okay, well, now we're in a bad position.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, you know,
or what we were talking about last night that everyone wasn't subjected to. Sorry about that, but the crossing of the Bell complex. You have him freaking $10,000, $8,000 male. He's proven he's doing his thing. You got holdbacks; they're getting up to size, and you come to find out you got an 8 gene male going to a 7 gene female. Got 2 or 3 recessives in it, and both sides carry yellow belly. And you're like, ah.
Now and again, you know, you can play with the odds. Yep. I've done it a couple times. We've won, we've lost. I tell you, the wins are amazing, but the losses hurt.
See, but you know what? And personally, and that's what we were talking about last night, that specific, every situation is different, but that scenario truly is really no bad decision. If you can get another male that would get you out of that complex and out of that problem that can produce the same caliber of animals. And with that, you don't typically have to jump in the deep end and get, you know, a $10,000 male. You can get something that's really, really moderate cost wise and still be so far because of the females that's ready for him. I think there's really, really good ways that you can kind of attack that situation. But even if you don't, so let's say, hey, you're gonna roll the dice, you know what you got on your male side, you know what you have on your female side, a different view of what you can do in that situation. Ride it out. You want to do it, do your breeding, but you have to consciously say this is not going to have any financial gain to it whatsoever, and hope you hit that mega animal or two out that clutch. And what I would do with them 3 or 4 females, if you do get those all white snakes, don't really consider that immediately part of sellable inventory. Sit it to the side, address the rest of your breedings, the rest of your pairings until finances free up in a sense where I'm getting these white animals tested. And then I know what I'm working with and can put them out that
And
way.
I think that's going to excel over as years to come, right? Because the testing really has only been like in the forefront, 2 to 3 years.
Yep.
So think about it when we're talking, hey, our panel tests are not 20 tests now, it's 100.
Yep. Because hearing from Charlie right here, he keep getting more and more and more tests. Within the next few, I think, weeks or months, he's supposed to be getting the DG as well as puzzle tests. And he has the best competitive prices out there. Not throwing shade at anybody else. We much respect to RGI and those guys, but he is extremely personable. He answers all your messages back and forth on Instagram in the wee hours of the night because he is in law enforcement, so he's up all weird hours. But definitely use your discount code when you're talking with him, 10 off, and get that discount on shedtesting.com.
Yeah, he's been great for us so far, and and honestly, you could, like we talked about earlier, you can look back probably a year ago, and I remember they're like, hey, what do you think about testing? I was like, man, I'm never gonna do that. Never gonna do that. Why would I do that? Like, we'll just be smart about our pairings. And it's like, honestly, we excelled in a project because we took a gamble. Let me just put the money out there to test it. And we did test. Now, on the downside of that, when we did test, we got good results, had some stuff prove out to be double head, but at the same time ended up realizing that most of our holdbacks for that project had yellow belly. So, it's just keeping an eye, making sure that the yellow belly doesn't overlap and we get stuck with a bunch of white snakes. But testing has definitely been a good asset to have, and hopefully we can get some more panels in there. I know that they're working on a bunch of tests still, so hopefully everybody's enjoying the conversation. Appreciate the people that are hanging in there and just hanging out with us.
Absolutely. In our very, very kind of hangout session today, but also the shed testing and kind of levels to playing around. Obviously, we're not striving in any shape, form, or fashion to be at the level of like Canova. We want to push ourselves to the limit. But with shed testing, no matter who you use, it kind of lets the little guy, get in the game pretty solid. You can have a smaller infrastructure, smaller collection, but you can have a premium collection.
And you can take gambles on, some people can't, and I'm part of it myself. Maybe there's that animal that's that recessive or that double recessive, and you're like, man, that's what I need. Well, I just can't find it. It's not, the business isn't helping it out, and it's not set up to be able to get that. Right. Well, I can take a gamble and I can get this, 66 double head.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to grow it up, but let's do that. We spend, $50, $60 or whatever the cost is for the panel test. You get the test done and boom. Okay, we got lucky. It tested out positive. Boom. Well, now you are into that project at a reasonable value, and you're not killing yourself.
It's going to bring numbers down. People aren't, anyone, ourselves included, you're not really going to be able to tax people for, that 66% or 50% head clown. They're going to want, they're going to have options now to be able to go and either get their actual head or not, and know where you're starting. Because the question is always going to come to mind for even the experienced breeders. Why didn't this person just get it tested so they can, know for sure? But in that same sense, now you can get those deals when you go and you find that 50% or 66% het, whatever. My personal opinion, it's just my personal opinion. I don't think that it's flipping if I go out and buy,
No.
3% het puzzle females and get them in. And first shed, I send their sheds out, and one test is positive het puzzle and the other two are negative. And I turn around and I say, hey, I put it out there and it's legitimate. Hey, these two females are now back up for sale. Just got them in. They've been quarantined the whole 9 yards, but they are X, Y, and Z tested negative for puzzle, and they're back on the market because I did not get what I was chasing.
Well,
and I think you went to
and I think that helps. Back in the day, we didn't have all this. We would sit there and work a project, and hey, I've had it done myself personally. I have a het animal. The first 2 years they don't produce. Year
Right.
3 they produce. Just bad odds. Not that they weren't het. It was just bad odds. Everything didn't line up, and you're waiting there. When you're starting to get into these, multiple $1,000 projects,
Yep.
Me personally, if I can, spend a little bit of money up front and get it tested and not waste 2 years, 3 years,
I'm gonna take my lick
all day. I mean, we didn't do that before. Like Will, we just started doing that. But in my aspect, luckily, out of I think we had like 8 different animals that were either subadult or adult that were still 66%. We tested a lot. Over 50% of them did come back positive, which is great. But I was actually sitting there thinking about when me and Charlie were getting the results back for some stuff. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, if that would have been negative, I put 2 to 3 years into this animal, and now it would have no value.
Yep, and that's
not only for the public, but just for me in general for the breeding program. And then we find ourselves, okay, well, the value is off. We've put way more in it. Well, let's just shelf it. Now you have an animal shelf there that you're not using.
Yep.
And it's, as a business standpoint, if you're able to do that, that's great. But as a business,
talking to Volcanic, and it's the same thing. You shelf that animal and you make a program or project out of that that was never your focus and do something else with it, and you didn't theoretically do anything but increase your bills. It wasn't a passion project, wasn't something you was chasing. It was just something you started working by chance because you fell into it. You really don't want to focus on any of that. You really don't. It's extremely difficult to kind of get ahead on your focus while you're also messing with things that you really probably shouldn't even be messing with.
Yeah, that's why I don't me personally, I don't do a lot of dinker projects. We have one. I have one dinker project, and I can say we've worked that project for 6 to 7 years, and I have yet to sell, release any type of animal from it.
Good.
Because
I did a video on that. We was talking about. I'm sure it can get broader than that, but it's like 2 stages of a new gene. It's the dinkers, theoretically speaking, where okay, this may be something. Let me figure it out, and having the infrastructure in place to do that, knowing that you're going to breed this animal, male or female, for the next 3, 4, 5, 8 years, and not sell a single animal, and have the infrastructure to feed these animals, house these animals, figure out these different combos and how this gene, if it is in fact the gene, is reacting and responding in different combos. And then once you get there, you can make it hopefully to stage 2. And stage 2, for instance, Stranger, I threw that out there before. We were heavily into that, but we bought into it at stage 2. So typically, when you get that stage 1 gene, it's a cheaper gene. People really don't know quite what it is, or it pops up into your collection, and then you're trying to figure out, doing all the research and breeding and everything to figure out the legwork. Stage 2 of that new gene, you've done majority of that, is out there, and now you can demand 4 figures, for this gene, and it's expensive, and they kind of have all the research you've done thus far, which is still untapped because so many, you can't do everything, but that it's solidified itself as a gene. So now you're buying in at a premium but this person's already done all the work, to solidify the gene. So now you can kind of run rampant with it. So those are the two major stages I thought so far of new genes, which I think can be beneficial. But I don't think a lot of new people like ourselves are prepared to take on like a stage one gene.
I mean, we like I said, we have one that I would consider a stage one gene. We've had it for quite some time. I definitely limit myself to like maybe like honestly 1 to 2 pairings every year or every other year.
Right.
Just to not, you don't want to flood yourself, you don't want to get too crazy. And even still, we're working the project for 6 to 7 years. We still don't know exactly what it is. We've made a couple cool animals, but we still don't know what it is. And we're 30 some animals into the project, and we're just if we yeah, I mean, but again, that's why I haven't added, like, I see some of the newer stuff that's coming out and people are putting the legwork, and it's like, all right, I'll just watch, see what happens,
Right.
see how it evolves. But you can't jump into everything, because that stuff can definitely, it can overtake a lot.
Oh yeah, and you see all the great people that's kind of gotten into it, whether it's recessive or equally dominant. Even with Monsoon, when he discovered Monsoon or Murray, where they work them, they don't sell those animals, and then whatever they have them breeding to, and then they go from there once they solidify it.
Off topic, is Moray and Monsoon the same?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
they've been proven to be the same. Just discovered in two different collections.
Yeah, you don't see. I mean, you see Monsoon, but you don't see a lot of Moray. And I've
Yeah,
seen like
you
when I first seen those, I was like,
you
that's
won't,
similar.
because I think the same kind of thing went on with Enhancer and DG. I believe Enhancer was out in Canada, or discovered in Canada, and then DG here. So what ends up happening, in my opinion, I know Moray is out there with my guy out there, Roland Iris. We've done importing from him a couple times. But if it's in the Netherlands and not in the States, you're gonna have people in the States paying whatever to get imports into the country, specifically that gene. These imports are not the $25 imports from Africa, wild caught. So you're going to pay a premium dollar for them. So it's not going to be as many people doing it. So if the gene stems from over there, like Moray, then you're not going to have a ton of it here, especially when you already have Monsoon here that's been proven to be the same gene, and there's no price difference. It'd be different if, all right, you got Monsoon here and it's $10,000, but I can go and get a Moray for $5. That's not a thing. So it's all pretty much neck and neck, so you're not getting a price cut for going, across the lake to go get it. So it really just doesn't make any sense. But then you also run into the problem of, like I was saying, DG and Enhancer. Problem with DG and Enhancer, it's factual, but as well, in my opinion, you have the scientist that's been working the gene testing in Canada that says DG Enhancer is just simple recessive. You have gene testing here, where they say, hey, there's 3-4 different stages of DG. But the latest information from Canada is saying, hey, it's just simple recessive. It's either het or it ain't. That's legitimate.
Yeah, that was all. That made my head hurt.
Yeah. So they're saying that there's A, B, and C, but here in the States they're saying it's A, B, and C. But regardless of the fact, my issue with even the argument, we shouldn't even argue over it, because you've been around for quite some, you've been around for quite some time. But I say that because now we're not gonna run into as many issues because of genetic testing. Genetic testing is a blessing. But since it wasn't around in 20 or 15 years ago when they discovered DG and Enhancer, there's no one out there that can track back stage by stage by stage following every single gene. And unfortunately, like Lesser and Butter and Banana and Coral Glow, these genes that look similar, are the same, whatever it may be, you end up chasing what name is cooler. So if you're working with a het enhancer and you're working during around the times when everything is god awful expensive, and you run into the same gene DG and you buy a visual DG, head enhancer, visual enhancer, whatever you're working with to better your collection and chase your passion. When you hatch out this, when you bred this head enhancer to your head DG and popped out visuals, what you call them? So what you put them on the market as, what you put them on morph market as, what seems to be selling better versus the other name. So then you fall into that category where you have already mixed the lines throughout the years, and you have people that like one name over the other name. You never truly know what's the source of your gene. So when you come along 15 years in and now you're going to chase the origin of the gene and say, hey, I'm testing this enhancer, this test this way, I tested this DG, it test this way. But who says that this was actually a DG and this wasn't an enhancer? The person that sent it in. So that's my issue with the whole
so much backlogs that you'll never
right.
know.
Versus, hey, I invented DG. I've got the first DG and gene testing is already out. We can shed test. We can shed test right now. I'm gonna send in all my shed now and get put on the map. So we shouldn't have that problem moving forward. But I think we waste time arguing over this stuff because personally, I mean, none of that stuff is 100%. It's all mixed up. 15 years in, all that stuff is mixed up. Enhancer. DG,
I just, honestly, I just can't wait. Like, being somebody who was around the shows and in the hobby, we'll say in 2000, I can't wait to see what like 15 years from now looks like.
Man,
like what
we'll say this: we're about to move if we're not already, and this will, I think, it's going to shock people. We're about to move so fast. Man, we're about to move so fast. I mean, that all shed testing, I'm a fan of it. All shed testing is going to do for this industry and this hobby is going to bring a lot of income into it. Don't get me wrong. It's going to bring a lot of people back, a lot of enthusiasts, a lot of breeders, but it's going to truly hit the fast forward button on this. You thought people was coming out with combos fast before? Watch.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I mean, that's why, after thinking about it, letting it settle in some time, the shed testing it's a game changer. It's a time saver. It's definitely a benefit for the industry as a whole. And we're definitely going to see a lot of fast forward. I mean, we're already seeing stuff, you see those handful of like four quad recessive visuals. And it's like, this is like nothing. Like, it's cool because we haven't seen it a lot, but with what we can do, there's no limitations.
Yeah, and they're already typing it. Yeah, we already. Yeah,
absolutely.
A lot. We joke. I know I do. With Darren and with you. Everybody about the dinosaurs in the industry, and it's not to throw shade. One of my favorite people is Limey. I always make fun of him when he finds his way on these lives on Instagram because he's like, I mean, he's a true dinosaur. Just Canova references him. Ozzy references him. He doesn't do Tinley, but he's literally like 80 years old. and
the biggest thing with that is, when I started doing my shows, local shows to me, that's how I met Limey.
See? Yeah. Oh, he's that. And it's funny. I put it out there because I'm like, you know what? He breaks the mold when it comes
to
absolutely.
Absolutely.
He's absolutely hilarious. He's extremely friendly. He's very helpful. But when I call him a dinosaur, I mean that he's a dinosaur. But it works for him. He buys his rodents. He doesn't breed rodents, but he has some groundbreaking blackhead and sentinel stuff. But the way he does business truly breaks the mold on where we are all going. We wouldn't be able to do it the way he does. I mean, he has phenomenal animals at his tables, but you go to his table and you're like, oh man, you got any animal from $300 up to $4,000, and he's selling animals week after week after week. And you go to be like, oh, I want this. All right, you have to be this amount, and you pull out a card. Like, yep, cash only. This man is still functioning in 2024, straight cash, the dollar. And I joke with him all the time. He lets certain other things go. Depending on whether he knows you or not. He's just very old school. He's built his brand from the ground up, and you love him. You love him to death. On another video, I'll tell you the story about actually hanging out with him after the show, where he almost died at my hands. But he's family. Love him to death. But yeah, it's awesome, awesome experience. But the direction the industry is going in, we're about to really, really leapfrog. I mean, almost time shifting type of stages.
Yeah, that's why it was really important for us to like narrow it down and say, hey, we got to restructure. We have to get things better, because if not, once all these changes and everything keeps happening every year, it's changing. So you got to keep evolving and
Yep.
just keep doing it. I mean,
Plus, they're
2020.
gonna. I think once they finally do all the big genes, incomplete dominance and recessives, I think they'll probably start fine tuning and doing some of the not so heard about genes and everything. And I think it'll make things better because yes, people won't get the notoriety for being a original person with this, that, and the third gene, but I think they're going to iron out a lot of these gene doubles, duplicates. You know,
And not only to add to that, I think it's always going to bring, when people start doing these and start testing and getting all these cool combos, it is going to bring so much life back to some old
Yeah.
genetics that just people just bypass because everything else is so cool and you're focused on this. That's one thing that I could probably never. I don't know. I can't ever get away from this stuff, man, because there's just too much. Like
it is.
right now, we're worried about all these recessives, and who knows, 10 years from now we could be going back to
Oh man, it's the totality of circumstances, and I look at that with everything. Like even when I watch these videos and everything, and get my information off of Instagram and Facebook, and trying to stay hip to what's going on. I just don't chime in on anything negative. So now that everything has come to light, for instance, with like Trick, Hurricane, Blitz, and all that stuff, man, those were fighting words when you would get in some of these groups and you're reading, and I'm trying to educate, I'm trying to get the information. What's the meat and potatoes? And I would get all that, but you will find that people stayed in their lane. Either you were pro Hurricane, pro Trick, pro Blitz, and your gene was better than the other gene, and they kind of ran like that for so long. There was so many arguments, and I mean, people will fall out with people. And now genetic testing comes around, they prove all three genes are the same. You have different expressions, but they're all the same. And I laugh at that inside because I'm like, this is what we need, whether, you're working, because now you're not going to be afraid if you may feel a certain strain of the gene may be better. I get that. But to be told that the nuts and bolts that these are the same, you kind of won't throw so much shade at that combo if you're a Hurricane guy, and that combo that you need to have Hurricane in it actually has Blitz in it, where you would not even look twice at it. Now you may gravitate toward that to get you moving forward in your program if you know that genetically they're all the same.
I think the biggest upset with that, like something like that, because we watched that. That's why we don't have any of those genetics, because it's too much drama and too much into it without having the information like we have now.
Yep.
I think the only thing that's going to downgrade stuff like that is, and maybe not because of the quality or, some better looking quality, blah, 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 but the price points.
Oh, yeah.
It's like lesser butter. It's proven it's the same, identical, there's nothing different. It makes some things look a little bit differently, but the price points are pretty close, like very close. Some genes, like like we were saying, the Hurricane stuff, I still see, it's not as bad as it used to be. I mean, there was a lot of one time where I think, the Trick stuff, either the Trick or Blitz, I mean, that stuff was like pennies on the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And now to find out, like, man,
Yep.
it's the exact same thing as that, you have $150 animal and then a $2,000 animal, and they're the exact same genes.
Yeah.
Again, it's just, that's one of the reasons why we strayed away from those genetics, just because you're either in a good spot or you're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
You were either smart about it and you had things going for you, or you sold a lot of stuff and made a lot of stuff and moved it out cheap, and you got a lot of people that are like, man,
Oh yeah, that's true.
we got a good deal, or man, we got really screwed on this. But
Yeah, man, oh man. So we'll start wrapping this version up. We're gonna have to do this again. We got so much stuff to talk about going on in the industry and business wise. I feel like this was a wealth of information already. So
yeah,
I don't know.
a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff that can happen, and a lot of easy things that you can get straight into a downward spiral real quick. Mostly the biggest thing is, thanks to everybody that tuned in just to show the support or just hear this side of the story. One of the biggest things that I'm trying to push through, especially more in 2024, is, getting back to the point where this is what we've dealt with. There's no hiding. I'm, fully open to, expressing what we did, where we went wrong, how things could have played out. We're happy that certain things did, but the restructures and stuff like that, it's all a learning curve. And if we can help somebody prevent, some mistakes that we did, great. I love passing information on and doing these. You'll see a few more videos coming out of just different topics that we can help out and just shed some insight on in the future for sure.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I'm along with you. It's like that's been the most important thing about kind of sharing this entire business journey. I think a lot of people look at us like we have everything going well, and it don't really go that way all the time. And to hopefully influence anybody that's trying to get into this industry, like you said, there's a lot of mishaps, a lot of problems you run into, a lot of issues where it's like, oh well, if I could have did this over, I would have did X, Y, and Z. So that's why we try to put a lot of it on camera. So definitely be doing a lot more collaborations with Tim. And we're going to be seeing Tim a lot more on Morphed Out Reptiles YouTube. We're definitely going to do some lives over there as well and support the whole movement. But hopefully everybody enjoyed the show this week. If you haven't already, definitely hit that like button, hit the subscribe button and notification bell, as well as go over to Instagram and give Morphed Out Reptiles a follow. Definitely jump in his inbox. He'll send you some stuff on what he has available and what he has going on in his show schedule, as well as pick on him if you don't see a post every couple of days, because I definitely do. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed this week, and we're gonna be signing off.
We're getting there, so we'll get better with it. But again, thank you everybody that tuned in. Our inbox is always open. We're always here to chat it up, talk. If you have a podcast, we're always open to trying to set stuff up to get on there, just to get the name out there, get the just chat. I mean, we can do this for hours, as you can see already. But before we go, obviously, shout out to Will, Audra, great people in the business. We've gained a lot of information and help from you guys over the short amount of time that we've been working together. And as always, shout out to Robin and the Redline shipping team.
Absolutely.
For shipping needs, make sure you guys go see them. They have a great team behind them. And we'll see you guys next time. Mr. Barnhart, the master.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. Definitely appreciate that.
You, sir.
See you guys next time.